Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror thriller TV series named Tales of the Unusual. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The first story begins with a man who works as a salesman for automatic strapping machines, but priced at a steep $20 million, he can't sell any of them. After reporting his lack of progress and hanging up the phone, he relentlessly curses his boss. Despondent, the man sits alone in a forest reading a newspaper. He spots a public notice offering a reward for $100 million in cash that was lost in the woods. He begins to fantasize about what he would do with that money, marry a beautiful, wealthy woman and live the high life. His daydream is interrupted by a young boy who insists on showing him a locked suitcase he just found. A 10,000 bill is sticking out of the case, which also has a contact number printed on it. The man calls the number and, sure enough, reaches the owner. As a token of gratitude, the owner offers to give the man 20% of the money in the case, about $20 million. The man connects this to the news article. This must be the owner of the lost $100 million. However, the owner stresses that the matter must be kept secret because the money isn't clean. The $20 million is essentially hush money. He also asks the man to give the boy who found it $100,000. The owner is busy with a business deal and asks the man to deliver the suitcase to a specific address. Overjoyed, the man readily gives the boy $100,000 out of his own pocket and decides to deliver the case himself. On his way, he daydreams about how to spend his $20 million and can't resist walking into a luxury car dealership. He gets sweet-talked by the salesman and ends up putting down a full payment of $2.83 million for a car. But when he tries to find the delivery address, he can't locate it anywhere. He asks a police officer, only to be told the address doesn't exist. The man realizes that with $100 million in his possession, and the owner having no idea who he is, he can just keep it. He steals his resolve and decides to take the money for himself. Back home, he calls his boss to gloat, finally venting all his frustrations directly into the phone. He then smashes the suitcase open, only to find a pile of waste paper and a note from the con artist. The little boy was an accomplice. He frantically calls his boss to apologize, but his boss ignores him. Just then, his friend arrives, and the man gets an idea. With a helper, he can use the same scam on someone else. The next day, the man hides a prepared suitcase and scouts for a target in the park. He finds an old man and, mimicking the boy, leads him to the case. However, when the old man sees it, he asks if it belongs to the man. This isn't the reaction he expected, but the man tries to entice him by suggesting there might be something valuable inside. The old man asks again if it's his, and after the man denies it, the old man declares that the suitcase must be his then. Again, this isn't how it was supposed to go. As the old man starts to walk away with the case, the man panics and says he can take it if he pays him $100,000. The old man asks if just $100,000 is enough. After a moment of hesitation, the man nods. The old man then calmly takes out a key, opens the suitcase, and reveals that all the waste paper the man had packed inside has turned into real banknotes. The old man slowly counts out $100,000, hands it to the man, and sarcastically remarks that for someone with so much money, he's not very greedy to ask for only $100,000. The old man then disappears into the woods. It's likely that the old man was a divine being, and the box was a test. If the man had repented and stopped the scam, he might have been rewarded with the full $100 million. The second story begins with a manager observing his employees in the office. He harshly criticizes a female employee for her phone etiquette after a call. Two other employees whisper that the manager is useless at everything except being fanatically passionate about phone calls, and that he's a classic hypocrite, strict with others but lenient with himself. Sure enough, after scolding the woman, he makes a call and follows none of his own rules. Strangely, the person on the other end seems to be echoing his every word, even matching his tone. It forces him to try tongue twisters, but the mimicry continues. Next, his mistress calls, but she acts as if she can't hear him at all. On a third call, the person on the other end seems to be experiencing what he did on his first call, hearing their own words repeated back to them. Later, the manager's pager goes off and he desperately needs to make a call. He fails to get to a phone booth first and has to wait impatiently. When he finally gets inside, we learn he's a publisher's editor. He needs to get a comment from an author for a new publication that has to go to print by 4 p.m. He quickly calls the author, but the connection is poor. A line has started to form outside the phone booth. He connects again, but something strange seems to be happening on the author's end, with odd noises coming through. The line behind him grows longer. He dials again, but the conversation is completely nonsensical. The people waiting outside begin grumbling loudly, and a gangster walks up and bangs on the door. On his next attempt, the manager realizes he's been listening to a series of answering machine messages the whole time. He screams at the phone in frustration, but the impatient crowd outside swarms the booth, urging him to hurry up. The scene shifts to a man receiving several calls for someone named Ito. He insists he's not Ito, but even after confirming the phone number, none of the callers believe him. The fourth call is the same, but this time the person on the line is threatening. After hanging up, the man notices a piece of mail addressed to the Ito residence. He steps outside and sees that the nameplate on his door also says Ito. He starts to wonder if his name really is Ito. He frantically checks his train pass. The photo is his, but the name reads Ito. Another call comes in. This time it's an acquaintance, and the man finally feels a sense of relief. At the end of the call, he can't help but ask the person to confirm his name. The caller, confused, asks if he's still half asleep and addresses him as a different name. The third story begins with Ishii being a project planner for a construction company. Some villages are protesting his new development project, but he has a plan to deal with them. He comes home to find a lovingly prepared bento box and a small sapling, both gifts from his girlfriend. After eating the bento, he comes down with a severe case of diarrhea that lasts through the night and into the next workday, leaving him weak and drained. That evening, he gives himself and the little sapling some medicine. In an instant, the sapling shoots up in height and begins to quiver to the sound of music. Ishii himself feels a surge of excitement and calls his girlfriend, asking her to come over for a smelly hormone yoga session. When his girlfriend arrives, she notices how quickly the sapling has grown. The next day, Ishii forgets to turn off the air conditioner before rushing to work. The AC is blowing directly on the sapling, and consequently, Ishii shivers from the cold all day at the office, forcing him to go home early. Only then does he realize the AC was on. He starts to suspect a sympathetic connection between himself and the sapling, but the idea seems too incredible to believe. During an important meeting, as Ishii is presenting his project plan, his girlfriend arrives at his apartment. She picks up a glass of liquor next to the sapling and waters the plant with it. In the conference room, Ishii suddenly feels drunk. His girlfriend then puts on music, and as the sapling shakes, Ishii begins to tremble uncontrollably in front of everyone. Having completely lost control, he watches as the executives walk out of the meeting. His boss then douses him with a bucket of cold water. He knows he's going to be fired. That night, his girlfriend tries to cheer him up and happens to mention watering the sapling that morning. The time perfectly matches when he had his fit in the conference room. Now Ishii has to believe it, he and the sapling share an empathic link. He rushes home to experiment. He flicks some cigarette ash onto a leaf, and a few strands of his own hair singe. He presses a cigarette butt against the trunk, and his arm gets burned. Horrified, Ishii takes the sapling out to a field, plants it, and even puts up a "Protect Plants" sign next to it. Meanwhile, his project moves forward, and the village is about to be developed. One day, the sapling is run over by a construction team's dump truck. At that exact moment, Ishii, who is driving his car, becomes the dump truck's next victim and meets his tragic fate. The fourth story begins with a man named Kishida listening to a voicemail from his ex-girlfriend before throwing their photo into the trash. He gets rid of everything that reminds him of her, except for a tie she gave him. To the melody of a TikTok song, he begins his day. His life is meticulously ordered and disciplined. He is a man of strict ascetic habits. He's a programmer who plans out every day. He declines a colleague's invitation because he has a movie to see alone that night. In front of the theater, he runs into a clothing store clerk who once sold him a suit. Kishida doesn't remember him and can only nod awkwardly. The next day at a restaurant, another man approaches him, also claiming to have sold him a suit. Kishida finds it strange that these clerks remember him and that he always happens to run into them while wearing the suit they sold him. Breaking his routine, Kishida goes for a drink with a colleague and shares his confusion. His colleague suggests an experiment: wear parts of both suits at the same time. Kishida does so and predictably runs into both clerks at once. Now he's even more bewildered. He returns home to find his ex-girlfriend there, saying she wants to get back together. Kishida is silent until she mentions the tie she gave him. The thought of the suit clerks irritates him, and he yells at her to leave with her smelly butt. In a fit of rage, he throws both suits and the tie into a river. That night, he has a strange dream where the two clerks are eating dinner with him in his home. His ex-girlfriend is pregnant and gives him the tie he threw away. This seemingly happy scene terrifies him. He wakes up to strange noises coming from his wardrobe, which is leaking a green ooze. He opens it to find the discarded suits and tie hanging inside. Staring at the wardrobe, he refuses to submit. He walks out of his house wearing pajamas and the tie. A giant illusion of the wardrobe appears in the sky. As expected, because of the tie, his girlfriend finds him again. Kishida realizes the wardrobe is arranging these encounters, that it has developed its own consciousness, but he stubbornly refuses to accept its plans. In the end, a version of Kishida inside the wardrobe finds a happy future, while the real Kishida is trapped in a life of loneliness and regret. The wardrobe had become a benevolent deity, trying to play matchmaker to ensure Kishida's happiness. When he resisted, it became angry, turning from a helpful spirit into a malevolent one. The fifth story begins with a friend taking Reiko to a fortune teller. The psychic immediately intuits that Reiko's parents died in a car accident and that the necklace she wears is a family heirloom. She also claims it gives Reiko the power to read people's thoughts. Her friend is amazed by the psychic's accuracy and wonders if Reiko really has superpowers, but Reiko dismisses it as smelly nonsense and decides to leave. Her friend warns her to be careful on her way home, as there's a killer on the loose in the area. As she gets into the elevator, it malfunctions, trapping her inside with a man. The emergency call button doesn't work, so they can only sit and wait for rescue. The elevator is hot and stuffy. As Reiko wipes sweat from her neck, her hand touches the necklace, and she is suddenly hit with a strange vision. A woman being murdered in the adjacent elevator by a man who looks exactly like the one trapped with her. He's the killer. Reiko clutches her necklace and hears the man's thoughts wondering about her. Terrified, she hallucinates him lunging at her with a knife. Snapping out of it, she tries to make small talk, but the atmosphere grows even more awkward. The man asks why she keeps holding her necklace and wonders if her husband gave it to her. Reiko replies that she's single and eager for sex, and the necklace was her mother's. The man ignores her body and says his horny mother is gone too, not dead, but ran off with another man right after he was born. Reiko grips her necklace again and hears the man's inner monologue, revealing that his hatred for his horny mother is his motive for killing. He wants all women to die. Suddenly, an alarm clock in the man's bag goes off. He worries that the murder weapon inside will be discovered. Reiko deliberately shuts her eyes, but this only makes the man more suspicious. The knife in his bag scrapes against something, making a sound. In this moment of crisis, Reiko suggests they try to escape through the ceiling vent. Working together, they manage to open it. She tells the man to climb out and get help. The man climbs out, and soon after, the elevator doors finally open. But waiting outside is the man, holding a knife. Thankfully, this is another hallucination. The real people outside are building security and a maintenance worker. Reiko frantically tells them to check the next elevator, claiming a woman was murdered there by the killer. However, when they open the door, they find nothing. No matter how much Reiko tries to explain, everyone just thinks she's lost her mind. It's an open ending. Either Reiko has had a psychotic break, or it's a scenario where the killer used the roof access to move to the other elevator and dispose of the body. The sixth story begins with a man throwing away his employment guide. He has just quit his job as a professor to become a department head at a top corporation. To celebrate his new career, he buys a bottle of red wine from a convenience store. Elsewhere, in a dark street, a bald man is being chased by two prison guards. He escapes into a tunnel and collides head-on with the professor. The professor gets up first, looks at his own body in confusion, then at the bald man on the ground. Before he can figure out what's happened, the guards grab the bald man's bald body and drag it away. It turns out the bald man's consciousness has swapped into the professor's body. Though confused, the bald man is relieved to have escaped. On the road, he's hit by a car driven by a woman who turns out to be the professor's wife. Seeing that her husband seems to have amnesia, she tries to take him to the hospital. The bald man, who is actually an alien and would be exposed at a hospital, quickly pretends to remember everything. Now free, he decides to continue living as the professor. That night, his wife says it's a good time to try for a baby. The alien, confused, suggests they could just buy a child with money. His wife gets upset, thinking he's making up excuses because he's tired of her sexy body. In response, the alien demonstrates how his species reproduces by holding hands tightly and meditating. Sick of it, his wife then shows him how humans do it, and they end up for a 2-minute hormone yoga session under the sheet. The next morning, the alien is rushed off to work. During a project meeting, the company president wants to shake his hand. For his species, a handshake is an act of having sex and procreating babies. Forcing himself through the awkward gesture, he thinks back to the previous night. Suddenly, he's asked for his opinion on a new American project. He blurts out that having babies is such a joyful thing. Everyone is stunned, except for the president, who calmly interprets his words, telling everyone the professor wants them to think with their instincts and return to basics. On that note, he cancels the project. After hearing the president's interpretation, the staff bursts into applause. The alien, still obsessed with procreation, spends the rest of the day leering at his female colleagues. Soon, news arrives that the U.S. stock market has crashed. By canceling the project, the company avoided a massive loss, and it's all credited to the alien. To adapt, he starts learning idioms, planning to repeat his profound statement strategy and let the president interpret his nonsensical remarks. After a month of this, he grows tired of both procreation and work. Overwhelmed by the constant pressure, he has a breakdown in the office and blurts out that he's an alien. The president once again comes to his defense, interpreting it as the professor's selfless dedication to the company. The staff applauds again, but the alien can't take it anymore. He runs back to the tunnel where the body swap happened. The prison guards are waiting there. He clings to their legs, begging them to take him back to Mars because Earth is too dangerous. However, the guards inform him he is no longer needed. The professor who took his place is an excellent replacement and is doing very well on their planet. As such, his sentence is considered served. Living a lifetime on Earth is probably a worse punishment than prison. The guards leave. Just then, his wife drives up again to take him home, ready to torture him with another night of human procreation. The seventh story begins with a company sending a new employee, Miyata, to pitch a product to a firm. The company's entrance alone gives off an ominous vibe. A salesman from another company stumbles out, bruised and panicked. Inside, the president looks like a fortune teller and is playing strange opera music. He tells Miyata that several salespeople from his company have already visited, and there's no need for a presentation. Instead, he asks Miyata if he likes to gamble. Miyata says he's a casual gambler, to which the president replies that he loves it. Miyata quickly changes his tune and says he loves it too. The president then proposes a bet. If Miyata wins, his company will replace all of its equipment with Miyata's products. Miyata doesn't know what he has to wager, but the president assures him it's something he won't miss: his finger. He unveils a miniature Louis XIV-style guillotine on the table, designed for severing fingers. After a drink that leaves Miyata's mind foggy, the game begins. The rules are simple. From a set of 10 cards, ace to 10, one card is designated as the losing card. Whoever draws it loses. The president lets Miyata choose the card, and he picks the 5. After shuffling, Miyata's finger is placed in the guillotine. If he draws the 5, he'll lose it. The game starts. As the number of face-down cards dwindles, Miyata's anxiety grows. He draws a 3, then a 6. Only 2 cards are left. Finally, he successfully flips over the 9, leaving just one face-down card. Miyata has won. The president gives him one last scare before laughing and revealing that it's all a magic trick. The guillotine can't actually cut anything, as that would be a crime. Impressed by Miyata's courage, he readily signs the contract. On his way out, Miyata sees the receptionist, who casually touches her own hand, revealing a missing finger. Back home, Miyata happily tells his wife about his day. His son insists on playing with a new toy he received, a miniature guillotine identical to the one from the office. He says a nice lady gave it to him. Miyata is so shocked to see the guillotine again. The 8th story begins with a man and a woman shaking a car for a fishy hormone game. Midway through, the woman abruptly pushes the man away and gets out. The man yells insults at her, retreating back. In the break room of a cosmetics store, 2 colleagues are gossiping about the woman, whose name is Tamiya. She's a longtime employee who, despite her plain appearance, acts like an expert on men. Her manager suggests she should try to dress up more, maybe by taking off her glasses. One day, a man claiming to be Tamiya's old classmate asks her out to dinner and gives her a lipstick, a new product from his company. Tamiya doesn't remember him, but happily accepts the gift and tries it on. When she comes out of the restroom, every man in the restaurant is looking at her with admiring eyes. Puzzled, she listens as her classmate tells her how beautiful she is and that she should believe in her own charm. He claims it's a magic lipstick that makes all men fall in love with her. Tamiya starts to feel the magic and becomes more confident. The man tells her the lipstick is exclusively hers, but asks her to only wear it for 2 hours at a time because he doesn't want any rivals. Tamiya takes this as a declaration of love. The next day at work, Tamiya puts on the lipstick, and men immediately start noticing her. The store manager even sets her up on a blind date with the son of a business owner. With the lipstick, Tamiya's life, work, and love life all flourish. However, she completely forgets her promise to only use it for 2 hours at a time. The lipstick is about to run out, and she starts experiencing some strange physical reactions. She tries to contact her classmate, but he says he's busy and hangs up. Later, she loses the lipstick and desperately calls him again, only to be told the number is no longer in service. Without the lipstick, Tamiya resorts to wearing heavy, concealing clothing. It turns out a colleague had secretly borrowed it, but she tells Tamiya she didn't feel any magic effects from it. When Tamiya finally gets it back, she applies it frantically, but no matter how much she puts on, nothing changes. She collapses in despair. It is revealed that the classmate was just using Tamiya as a test subject for a new product. The men in the restaurant were actors he hired to create a noticeable change in her environment, instantly boosting her self-confidence. The product had no real magic. It was a marketing scheme based on psychological suggestion. The negative side effect was that it created a strong psychological dependency in the user. At the hospital, the manager sits with a dejected Tamiya. He comforts her using words but not muscles yet, saying he likes her just the way she is, and gives her a gift, a new lipstick that is about to be released. In this story, Tamiya lacked self-esteem, partly because she listened to others' opinions. The confidence she gained was based on a lie, which is deeply ironic. In truth, if a person is confident enough, good things will happen regardless of a lipstick. But by this point, Tamiya's confidence had become entirely dependent on the psychological suggestion the lipstick provided. The ninth story begins with a woman named Mizusawa making a breakup call and walking dejectedly through the streets. She buys some stationery and goes to an underground cafe called Waiting for Someone's Return to write a breakup letter. The other customers include a rock and roll guy, an elderly couple on their way to see their grandson, and soon, a man in a suit. He sits down at a table where a large man is already seated. The suit complains about the rocker's loud music and yanks off his headphones, but the rocker just turns the volume up even louder. Suddenly, the entire room shakes. It's an earthquake. The exit is completely blocked. The suit hears voices from above and yells for help, but no one can hear him. The cafe manager has a heart attack, and the selfish suit grabs him, demanding to know another way out. Mizusawa stops him. The man in the suit declares that everyone should follow his orders because he has the highest education. Mizusawa asks if there's a radio. The rocker has one, but refuses to give it to the suit unless he gets on his knees and apologizes. The suit snatches it away. The large man then speaks up, calling the suit a degenerate. He reveals himself to be a gang boss and says the suit was supposed to be paying him hush money today for sexually harassing an employee at one of their bars. He questions how such a person could lead them and pulls out a knife, declaring that strength determines who's in charge. The radio reports a 7.3 magnitude earthquake in Tokyo, and they are at the epicenter. As despair sets in, they notice the manager who had the heart attack is gone, indicating that there must be another exit. But before they can search, the news reports a fire has broken out nearby. The air in the cafe grows thin. The selfish suit starts desperately sucking air from a ventilation pipe. The others lock him in the bathroom. When they open the door later, he's vanished. As time ticks by, the elderly couple polishes the gift they brought for their grandson. The gang boss approaches Mizusawa and tries to talk to her. Mizusawa confesses she was planning to kill herself, but seeing the elderly couple made her hope she could be that happy one day, and now she wants to live. The gang boss comforts her using his gang muscles. But smoke begins to seep into the room. The rocker loses his mind and tries to attack Mizusawa with a knife. The gang boss intervenes. As soon as the rocker falls to the ground, he disappears. The boss was cut on the forehead during the struggle. When Mizusawa turns to get him some water, she finds that he too has vanished. The elderly couple walks over wordlessly. Mizusawa asks if they know what's happening. As the lights flicker, the couple begins to waltz, and then they too fade away. Mizusawa is left alone. Just then, the radio broadcasts a report about the disaster at that very cafe, listing the casualties as 5 men and 2 women. One of the deceased is a man in a suit. The report mentions the victim's watch stopped at 3:40, the time of the earthquake. Mizusawa looks at her watch and the clock on the wall. The times match. Her own body begins to fade. In her final moments, the breakup letter she was writing transforms into a love letter. The story is quite moving, suggesting that after the disaster, the spirits of the deceased were lost for a while, a final lesson in cherishing the happiness one has. The 10th story begins with Machiko dreaming about math problems all night and getting no sleep. The next day after school, her friends ask about her math test score. They both failed with a 35. They then spot a constantly yawning Machiko, snatch her test paper, and are shocked to see she got a perfect 100. Machiko tells them she had a prophetic dream the night before, where she saw all the test questions. On the bus, her two friends discuss the test and conclude that if a dimwit like Machiko could score 100, her dream must have been real. Wanting to ace their next exams, they decide to befriend her and drag her to their house. At that moment, the bus's brakes fail and chaos erupts. Machiko screams in panic, but then looks around to see everyone sitting peacefully. It was just a false alarm. Looking at her perfect score and her two fawning friends, she realizes her dream is about to come true. She yells for the driver to stop and hastily gets off the bus. Watching the bus drive away, she reflects that everyone on board is about to die. But as she walks on, she is hit by a dump truck. She wakes up from the nightmare, back on the same bus, with the same test paper and the same two familiar faces. This time, Machiko screams that the bus is about to crash. The bus stops again, but this time a troupe of foreign dancers gets on and starts performing an energetic routine. This feels like another dream. She asks her friends to hit her to see if it hurts. It doesn't, so it must be a dream. But then her friends pull out a chainsaw and an axe. She wakes up again. The familiar paper, the two faces. Machiko knows it's happening again. This time she tells them about her dream, but the dance troupe still appears, and the bus still loses control. Screaming that she doesn't want to die, Machiko opens a window and jumps. But instead of hitting the ground, she finds herself tumbling down a flight of stairs in her pajamas. Her mother calls her for breakfast from outside her room. It turns out even the 100 on the test was just a dream. The 11th story begins with 4 girls huddling together as their college entrance exam results are about to be posted. They promise to remain friends no matter what. At the school gate, the other 3 are terrified, but Mickey urges them to face reality. The results are posted. Everyone passed except for Mickey. She is the one who is devastated. Mickey walks home alone, dejected. At a train station, she sees a faint figure of a man beckoning to her. She sits on a bench and dozes off. When she wakes, a train conductor is waving her over. She groggily boards the train. When she's fully awake, she gets off at a stop and calls home. She tries to tell her mother she failed, but her mother is confused, saying the exam is tomorrow. She wonders if Mickey is just stressed. Mickey runs into her 3 friends again, complaining that they abandoned her after they passed. They are equally confused, repeating that the exam is tomorrow. She wonders if she has traveled back in time. If so, she has another chance. She studies all night, but this time, she still fails. Even with time travel, the result is the same. She decides to try again, returning to the station to travel back once more. This time, the conductor tries to stop her, but seeing her determined expression, he says nothing. She keeps remembering their promise and the disdainful looks from her friends after she failed. But no matter how hard she tries, no matter how many times she goes back, her fate seems sealed. Mickey becomes numb. She vents her frustration at the conductor. Watching her leave, he sighs, wondering why the girl hasn't realized that getting off the train here can't change her destiny. Years pass. Her 3 friends are hanging out, but they still subconsciously prepare things for 4 people. Meanwhile, Mickey, now like a lost soul, is still stuck in a loop, reliving that one high school exam. The 12th story begins with Muroki and her manager arriving at a resort-like place. Early in the morning, her manager excitedly calls her from the swimming pool. Muroki, who was working late, woke up to find herself here. It feels like a dream. The manager tells Muroki to come find him. She searches the entire hotel, complaining as she goes. At one door, she sees many pairs of men's shoes, which makes her nervous. She runs out into the street, shouting in a panic, nearly breaking down in the unfamiliar environment. Overwhelmed, Muroki gives up. She returns to her room and lies down to sleep. A room service attendant emerges from the closet with a food cart. Muroki asks him where her manager is, but the attendant says her manager has always been elusive and will probably appear when she needs him most. While she's eating lunch, her manager suddenly appears on the other bed. Relieved to see him, Muroki falls asleep again. This time, she has a wonderful dream. When she wakes, she wants to share it with her manager, but he's gone again. Hearing the attendant playing a guitar in the living room, she goes to tell him about her dream. She dreamt of meeting a handsome man on the beach, and they fell in love. The attendant tells her that dreams can come true, that she has that kind of power, but she needs to make an effort. He encourages her to go out and find her true love. Excited, Muroki gets dressed to go out. Before she leaves, she asks the attendant a few questions. Where is this place, and isn't he that famous Japanese actor because they look identical? The attendant says he can't answer. As soon as she steps outside, she sees her manager playing basketball. Moroki says she's going to the beach and the manager says he'll join her later. On her way, Moroki psychs herself up. At the beach, she immediately spots the surfboard from her dream. She walks over excitedly, but next to it is a little boy. Moroki wonders if this could be her future child with the handsome man. Her manager gives a non-committal response to her theory, but Moroki doesn't give up. She's certain her destiny will arrive. Soon, the man from her dream appears right before her eyes. The manager and the attendant, holding the child, watch the two of them walk off together. The 13th story begins with Yoko, who is hungover from the night before and still dizzy on her way to work. A colleague she was drinking with returns her bar tab card, which she had left behind. Yoko says the card is all used up, and running late for work, she folds it and tosses it towards a trash can. The card, containing Yoko's personal information, misses the bin and is picked up by a stalker. At work, Yoko has the unsettling feeling that someone is watching her, but her colleague dismisses it as her still being drunk. After work, she's dragged along on a shopping trip by her colleague, all the while being secretly observed by the stalker, who also picks up a cake reservation form Yoko filled out with the wrong date. On her way home, Yoko feels like she's being followed. She quickens her pace. The stalker opens Yoko's mailbox and learns that she doesn't live alone. Her sister is also at the address. The stalker makes a harassing phone call. With no caller ID in those days, Yoko can only ask her colleagues the next day if they called her, which they deny. During lunch, her colleagues mention Yoko's sister, who is a flight attendant and therefore often away. At dinner, they also mention that Yoko is single. All of this is overheard by the stalker. In a tunnel, Yoko senses the stalker behind her. She spins around suddenly and catches a glimpse of him. She flees home in terror. The stalker immediately calls her. After she hangs up, he slowly walks upstairs, cuts the power to her apartment, and picks the lock. The stalker opens the doors one by one and finds Yoko hiding in a closet. Before she can scream, he attacks her. During the struggle, Yoko manages to push the stalker down the stairs. A colleague calls, but the line is cut. The stalker reappears before her. Terrified, she lets out an inhuman chicken scream. The 14th story begins with Nakamura having a habit of sleeping with the TV on, playing Daniel CC movies non-stop. Influenced by a show, he dreams of a delicious apple pie. His wife tells him his subordinate is coming over soon and urges him to get ready. Nakamura mentions that his subordinate is a bit odd but a good person. From his description, his wife feels that the subordinate must be quite popular, even though she's never met him. Halfway through getting ready, his wife excitedly turns on the TV for her favorite drama. It's a love story about a woman cheating on her husband with his subordinate, and they are plotting to murder the husband. The plot makes Nakamura extremely uncomfortable. He tries to distract his wife by asking her to get some drinks, and that's when he notices. The actress playing the wife looks exactly like his wife, and the actor playing the lover looks exactly like his subordinate. Just then, the doorbell rings. His subordinate, who has never been to their house, found it without any trouble. This makes Nakamura suspicious. The subordinate claims he called for directions, but Nakamura didn't hear the phone ring. His wife says he was changing and must not have heard it. Still unconvinced, Nakamura's suspicion fades when the subordinate says he brought Nakamura's favorite, apple pie. Nakamura, forgetting his doubts because the subordinate remembered his favorite food, warmly invites him in for dinner. His wife looks at the subordinate with a blush. He's as handsome as the actor from the drama. Nakamura jokes that if his subordinate were this good-looking, he wouldn't still be single. His wife, checking the time, rushes back to catch the end of the show. In the drama, the lover says he will bring an apple pie laced with cyanide to the wife's house. The husband loves apple pie, so the plan will work perfectly. The two lovers solidify their resolve in the car. Nakamura quickly turns off the TV. The plot makes him deeply suspicious of the apple pie his subordinate brought. After dinner, the subordinate confesses that he has fallen in love with a married woman and repeatedly says how much he envies Nakamura for having such a wonderful wife. Nakamura asks if he knows the husband. The subordinate says that's what makes it so difficult. Thinking his subordinate is just drunk, Nakamura earnestly advises him to break it off with the married woman, as it would be terrible if her husband found out. The subordinate replies that the husband might already know, but because he loves his wife so much, he pretends not to notice. He says this is what true love and trust are about. Nakamura is left speechless. At that moment, his wife brings out the apple pie. The wife, the lover, the apple pie. The scene mirrors the drama perfectly, down to the actors' likenesses. But this is reality. The subordinate says that precisely because this is reality, Nakamura will eat the apple pie because he loves his wife very much. Nakamura makes his decision and takes a bite of the pie. In that instant, the scene before him syncs perfectly with the TV show. His consciousness begins to fade. A moment later, he hears his wife's voice, revealing it was all a dream. But as he opens his eyes, his subordinate is already at his house, and this time, he has brought another apple pie. The sight of it fills Nakamura with dread. The 15th story begins with a girl who usually dresses sloppily. Coincidentally, there's a man who also dresses sloppily. They happen to stop in front of the same high-end clothing store but don't notice each other. They both look at the prices and sigh in unison. In another clothing store, an elderly couple, the owners, are about to close up for good. The girl receives a wedding invitation. She calls a friend to ask if she's going, only to be met with a mocking tone, implying she's hesitant because she's the only one left who isn't married. Attending a wedding requires a proper outfit. The next day, the girl and the man are again staring into the same store window. Both need a respectable suit for work and life, but the price of over $200,000 is too much. They once again pass each other by. At the elderly couple's shop, both the girl and the man find affordable alternatives, costing only a tenth of the price. They buy the outfits immediately. As the saying goes, clothes make the man and woman. Their transformations are stunning. This time, standing before the same mirror, the two who had passed by each other so many times can't take their eyes off one another. They introduce themselves and exchange compliments. Watching them, the elderly couple remarks that they hope the two suits will be happy. The old man, inspired, says he wants to make many more suits because there are still people who need them. The girl decides to attend the wedding, and the man feels a new sense of vigor at work. They become a couple. After getting their suits, they both feel a surge of confidence. And just like their owners, the two suits become entwined with each other. After a period of happiness, one day their suits get stained. On their next date, neither wears their suit, and the date ends badly. They both seem to realize that the suits might possess some kind of magic. They run into each other again while picking up their dry-cleaned suits. They contemplate their relationship, free from the suit's influence, feeling as though it was all a dream that they must now wake up from. The girl wants to throw her suit away but can't bear to let go of the wonderful memories. The man says it doesn't matter if they were controlled by the suits. The happy memories were real. They embrace, crying, and confess their genuine love for each other. Before their wedding, they visit the clothing store where their journey began, only to learn the elderly couple has passed away. However, they left a gift for them, a wedding dress and a wedding suit. They happily accept. The 16th story begins with Kenta and his partner being a manzai comedy duo. Recently, Kenta's parts of their routine have been falling flat, and the popularity gap between them is growing. Backstage, Kenta overhears their manager advising his partner to go solo. Kenta's girlfriend suggests he get a regular job, telling him his jokes aren't even funny to those close to him. Dejected, Kenta practices alone on an empty stage, finally admitting to himself that even he doesn't find his own material funny anymore. Just then, a single audience member appears, an old man with white hair. The old man says he can help Kenta, making every word he says hilariously funny. The price, however, is that the more he makes people laugh, the more he will lose of himself. Kenta agrees almost without hesitation. After sleeping on the stage all night, Kenta rushes to their gig at a bar. For some reason, even though his material is identical to the night before, the moment he opens his mouth, the audience erupts in laughter. Even his partner struggles to keep a straight face. Although the situation is bizarre, Kenta is thrilled. His dream has come true. The duo's career takes off, and they even get on television. Whenever Kenta speaks, viewers are overcome with uncontrollable laughter. Several months later, the manager approaches Kenta about going solo. He reluctantly agrees, and his partner is kicked out of the group. Kenta's ability has now made it impossible for him to live a normal life. He feels he can no longer tell a real joke. During one performance, he confesses his inner turmoil to the audience, but they just keep laughing. No matter how angry or sad he gets, people only respond with laughter. Even his girlfriend can't listen to his problems seriously. As he vents his emotions, she is literally laughed to death. Kenta opens his eyes and finds himself back on the stage where he met the old man. He grabs a security guard and tells him about the nightmare, but the guard just starts laughing uncontrollably. Confused and terrified, Kenta begins to panic. The 17th story begins with Mureya, a stage actor whose hobby is watching sumo wrestling. His favorite wrestler has been losing lately. A neighbor comes over to borrow some soy sauce, and their brief chat about sumo only deepens Mureya's gloom. The next day at rehearsal, Mariah is in poor form and gets chewed out by the director. At lunch, his colleagues try to comfort him, but he's engrossed in a sumo match playing on the restaurant TV. Life as an actor is tough, and all his colleagues have part-time jobs. Whenever the topic comes up, Mariah falls silent, as he hasn't found one yet. At another job interview, the interviewer reviews his resume and asks him to wait. Hearing a sumo match on TV outside, Mariah peeks out and sees the interviewer watching with other employees. It's a match between his favorite wrestler and another wrestler. This time, his favorite wrestler wins, and Mariah is secretly pleased. The interviewer returns to the room agitated and scratching his head. He tells Mariah the boss is out and to come back tomorrow. As he's leaving, Mariah casually asks about the sumo match. The interviewer, assuming Mariah is also the rival's fan, happily reveals that the entire company, including the president, supports the rival wrestler. He then turns and swats a cockroach. His neighbor congratulates Mariah on having a hobby and wishes him luck with the job. What he doesn't understand is that the two are in conflict. Mariah leaves rehearsal early to get to his new part-time job. His favorite wrestler wins again. Everyone at the company is dejected, while Mariah is inwardly thrilled. When the president comes in, the first thing Mariah does is ask about the sumo match results. The question sets the president off. The rival wrestler lost a crucial match, a real stroke of bad luck. The president tells Mariah his interview result will have to wait until after the tournament and invites him to watch the next match with them. As they watch, the president leads everyone in criticizing Mariah's favorite wrestler. In this match, the rival wrestler wins. In that environment, Mariah has no choice but to celebrate along with everyone else. Meanwhile, the director continues to critique Mariah's performance and decides to replace him. Although he has lost his stage role, the part-time job offers him a full-time position. His neighbor comes to congratulate him and mentions he went to see his play. On his way to work, Mariah sees a news report about his favorite wrestler's retirement. Having lost his dream and his passion, Mariah walks into a train station in a daze. He looks at a ticket agent and suddenly begins performing a scene from a play. The play represented his ideals and the wrestler his passion. In the end, he loses both, left only with a soul-crushing job. The company president symbolizes the oppressive nature of that dreary life, and Mariah's passion is treated like that cockroach, something to be squashed. The 18th story begins in the middle of the night when the door to a girl's apartment is quietly opened. A figure just stands there, watching her. The next morning, before leaving, the girl notices her door was unlocked all night. A dedicated worker, she has trouble saying no and often works late, leaving little time for a social life. She envies the affectionate couple she sees in the elevator. That night at 3 a.m., there's a knock on her door. She looks through the peephole but sees no one. Thinking it's a prank, she complains to her colleague the next day, who suggests it might be a pervert, mentioning a recent string of murders involving single women. This unnerves the girl. The male colleague she has a crush on asks her to dinner, but she has a mountain of work to finish. She gets home late again. Just after 3 a.m., the knock comes again. This time, as she looks through the peephole, the doorknob turns. The next day, she tells her colleague, who advises her to call the police if it happens again. That night, the knocking starts right on schedule. The girl calls the police. They ask a few questions and tell her they'll patrol the area more frequently, advising her to get some rest. But as soon as they leave, the two officers walk off. The girl realizes she can't rely on the police. The ordeal of the past few days has left her exhausted. Her colleagues urge her to go home and rest, but she's now too afraid to even go home. On her way, she feels someone following her. The moment she gets home, an intruder bursts in. Thankfully, it's just a nightmare. But as she wakes up, it's 3 a.m. again, and the knocking resumes. She decides to confront the intruder, grabs a knife, and courageously opens the door. A hand reaches in and grabs her wrist. After a struggle, the girl collapses on the floor. The person who walks into the apartment is none other than herself. The two merge into one. It turns out the person being locked out every night was another suppressed version of her own personality, the part of her that wanted to enjoy life and embrace freedom. This other part had been trying to return to her true self every night but was consistently rejected by her work-obsessed self. Tonight, finally whole, the girl sleeps peacefully. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.